Hey, this is Professor Homa back with CSS, and this may be part 2 or part 3, I'm not sure, because I'll probably have to break it up a little more than I originally intended. But anyway, from where I last left off with recording, the last thing we did was go up to the section and give it this kind of background color and add some spacing to the P tag, to the H1. Didn't have any spacing, but we changed the font. We changed this to a sans serif. I'm going to change the color of a font. If I go in the H1 and I want to change the font color, I'd use a very simple property called color. And what I'm going to do for color, again, I'm going to try to look for something that's in here, and that's why I'm going to kind of bring this up so I can look at it a little bit. I'm just kind of putting this side by side so I can look at it. Now, if I put in a color, I'm going to put a $000, and then I'll right click and do the quick edit and just kind of look for a color, and I'm going to kind of move down here. I'm going to look for a brownish kind of color, kind of a deep brown, to kind of pick something out here, maybe a little on the grayish side. I don't want it too warm. So I'll try something like that. And if I could always change it later, that's the beauty of a CSS file. So I'm going to choose that. I'm going to close this with the little X, and then I'll put a semicolon here, and I'm going to do Command S. I'll try and save my CSS file as I go. Now if I go here, I do need to refresh this. And that is a brown color, I believe. It's very, very dark. I could barely see it on screen. I think I might go in here, quick edit, and make it a little lighter, just so I could see it kind of on my screen. I'll close this up. I'll save it. I'll come back here. I'll refresh. Now it's a little lighter. Now I could see it's brown now. It almost looked like black before. But again, I'm using brown and off-whites just to pull colors from this image here. If you had a different kind of image, you might pull some different colors that are in that. But try to pull the colors that are in your image. Don't use pink and purple and green if there's no pink or purple and green. Try to find colors that are in here. It'll just make the whole page look more unified. And again, I'm probably going to make my links this brown color too, and I may use this brown color elsewhere. Rather than just using different browns, I might as well be consistent and use the same brown. I could even make my if I want my paragraphs brown, I can do that. I could go in here, you know what, and then this is where CSS is easy. I could just copy this, go to my P's down here, hit return, and just paste that. And now if I refresh this, it should make my P tags brown. Now it's very hard to see that that's even brown, but it is, so I'll let that go for now. Probably isn't doing a whole lot by making that brown because it's not a real contrasting kind of color as opposed to black. But anyway, I am able to do that, and I can copy the same color and put it in other areas. Next thing I want to deal with, because this is a little more involved, is dealing with these lists. This can be a little tricky. You know, even if you're starting out, it's a little tricky. And what I'm going to do in this section, I'll do it after section because it's part of the section. I'm going to do something for, I'm going to do these for both. So this is how you do something for both. I'm going to do it for the ordered list, comma, unordered list. So for both lists, so if you want to specify two different things, you could put a comma. It's kind of a shortcut so you don't have to write a rule for OL and a rule for UL. This will be for both lists, and this is what I'm going to do from the start. I'm going to put a margin left in here, and you can see the way these things are. They're almost like not even going to they're past them. The text is lining up on the 16 pixel padding, which I put for this section. Remember, I have that 16 pixels, but it's almost going like an extra 4 pixels past it or something. I think it's like 4 pixels that it's kind of offset. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to do a margin left. And if you see margin left, just highlight it. And this is for the OL. And then I'm going to put in, I actually want to move it over like another 16. Like if I did 16 pixels right now, the same as the padding, watch what happens. I'll put in 16 pixels, semicolon, Command S save. I'll come here and refresh. It lines this up, but it's a little off. The bullet's almost on. So what I'm going to do is always add like a 4 pixels to that. It should be down here. This one should be 20. So I'm going to save that. I'll refresh this. You should see it change a little. There it is. And these moved over, so they're almost aligned. Now, if you didn't want these aligned right on the words, you know, that's one way. Just figure it's whatever your original padding is plus the 4. But if, let's say I wanted these over more, I'm just going to add, if I have this at 20, maybe I'll make it 40. I'll add another 40 to it, or another 20 to it. I'll put 40. I'll save it. I'll refresh it. And now they're moved over. If you want it more, maybe I'll make it 60. Remember, there's 72 pixels for an inch, so we're not talking 60 pixels isn't a lot. Alright, so now I moved them over. So what I did here is my OL and UL down here has a margin left. And think, margin and padding are very similar. Margin is in some cases when you're using spacing, you can almost use them interchangeably. But we'll get into when to use one or the other. But just for now, try and follow what I'm doing. But I did a margin left, and you can see this moved it over 60 pixels. And there's kind of a default here. You could even change this default. And I might as well show you how to do that. If you wanted to change the default, you can make another style here for the LI. And remember what the LI is. The LI is the line items. That's the individual line items. That's these things. So what you could do is you could put like a padding here. Padding left. Now it's normally not this much work to do this, but anyway, if you put a padding left here of, let's say, I think it's a default of like 5 pixels apart, but let's say you put 10 pixels. Semicolon, I'll save it. I'll come here and I'll refresh, and you can see now it moved it over a little bit. So you could extend that a little bit by just increasing the padding of the LI. Something else we could do with the LI, and I'm going to go down here and add another declaration for my LI, which is my line items. I'm going to do a padding top. And what that will do is it'll add a little more space before, kind of like what we did here. And here's a case where you could almost be interchangeable with margin and padding. We'll talk more about that. It'll be more crucial when we're laying out sections of a page and making columns and things like that. But for just spacing with type, padding or margin will kind of work almost interchangeably. But since I use padding left here, I'm going to use padding top. I'm not going to use another margin here. I'll use padding top. And what I'll do is just do a space, and maybe I'll just do like just a little bit, like 6 pixels. And I'll do a semicolon. I'll save it. I'll refresh it, and you can see what it did. It spread these out. It put about 6 pixels above each line item. Remember, this is for every line item on the page, and these are all line items. It doesn't matter if it's in an OL or UL, they're all line items. If you think that's too much, just go back, put 4, save it, refresh. And there it is. Now it's a little left. So it's starting to look like our original sample. We're just going to have to do a little bit with the footer. Now I think that's pretty much it with the list. That wasn't that hard. We specified the ordered list and unordered list. We gave it a margin left. We had to take into account the extra space where it goes off the edge, the extra 4 pixels, and then we just added to it and we made sure it looked nice. And then if you needed to adjust a little space away from the numbers or bullets, you can add more. Keep in mind you can't take away from here. That you have to use another method to actually take away, but there's not a real reason why you'd want to get it closer to the bullet that I can think of. But for what we're doing now, this should work. So our CSS file, we don't have that much more to go in here. Remember, we have our reset, our body, header, H1, P, and what I'm going to do next is kind of finish off this footer thing, and then we'll throw an image on our page to finish it up. So let me stop here, and then we'll move on to working on our footer.